Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Evolve Through God. My name is Angela Goodman, and I am your host of this podcast and likely many more to come. Today, I'm really excited to introduce you all to a good friend of mine who I met through actually a networking group last year. Her name is Ivy Perez. Ivy is she is a light in any room that she is in. She fills the room with her beautiful smile. She has a very graceful presence and is just an inspiration in so many ways. So I'm excited for you all to hear her story and hear about her relationship with God today. And also, we'll have a follow at the end of the podcast, but you can reach Ivy during her morning coffee talks, which she spells TAWKS, which I love. So without further ado, Ivy, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you so much. I'm grateful you asked me to be on your show. This is a topic that is so important, and I feel over the course of the last handful of years, 3 or 4, that more and more people are coming into their faith, or shall I say, being called back.
Oh, I love that.
Into their faith. And that's exactly what's happened to me. So yeah, I'm totally excited for this.
Oh man. You know what? My entire body lit up just now with spirit. It did when you said that. I love that you said so many are being called back, because people will hear as they listen to episodes, but a lot of the guests that I've had started out early on, mostly because their families introduced them to the faith, and then they left for a while and they've been called back. So I
Very
love
common.
that. I love that. So that being said, Ivy, we're going to start today with how you first found your relationship with God. What did that look like for you? Was it introduced to you at a young age? Let's start there.
Ooh, this is a lot to unpack. Okay, so I went to Catholic school from kindergarten all the way through high school.
Wow.
I went to Catholic school just because it was good education. My family didn't go to church. So going to school, I would hear about the Bible, about God, about right from wrong. And then when I would go home, it was just not incongruent. So I honestly grew up very confused. And as a child, you don't question what, your parents do or what your family does or aunts and uncles if they say certain things. I always observed everybody. I'm like, that's not right, or that's not cool, or you're not perfect. Who are you to judge?
Yeah.
So I heard a lot of judgment about other people.
Okay.
A lot. So I grew up not so much judging others, but I judge myself. It's kind of like, when you point the finger at others, there's 3 pointing back at you kind of thing. So I'm always kind of internalizing a lot of things, which holds me back. So it's weird. It's almost like it's a strength and it's a weakness at the same time, just part of life. But growing up in the church, I think now was such a great foundation for me. And then just like a lot of people, when I got into college, I didn't even think about church or going to church or anything like that. It was just, I'm free or whatever. So I was just living a very human life. I was having a good time and having fun. But it was in my 30s when I just started to really, the awareness of what I was doing and how I was living was not good. So for me, a lot of it stemmed around alcohol.
Okay.
And I think there was, because this is just part of the story, there was sexual abuse.
Okay.
And so
was that at a younger age also?
yes. And
Okay.
the funny thing about that is the timelines are fuzzy, very fuzzy. Like when exactly things happened, or for how long.
Right.
But I remember things happening afterwards. There was just so much confusion. Like, why is this happening to me? Why is it that the people who are supposed to love and protect you are not, you know? And so there was a lot of anger that I didn't realize. I always showed up with a happy face all the time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
internally, I'm like, a lot of things just didn't make sense. So I think the alcohol played a huge role in a subconscious sabotaging way. Like I would sabotage relationships, and sometimes it was on purpose. And a lot of times unknowingly, I would do things, say things, or whatever that was hurtful. And it was mostly towards men, boys, men, whatever. And I remember a friend of mine said to me, like, why do you hate men so much? And I'm like, I don't hate men. I don't hate men at all,
Yeah.
you know? But it made me think, because it was almost as if I'm going to hurt you before you hurt me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that just came from being hurt.
Yeah.
And betrayed, the
Yeah.
trust and all of that.
Yeah.
So I used alcohol. Alcohol was a tool that I used. And so, but for a long time, I didn't realize I was using it. It was interesting. But then it just got to a point, sure, at the beginning for me, it was fun, just like anything else. It's fun. And then it got to a point where I'm putting myself in situations that is just not healthy. And in my 30s, I feel like it's going way off track, but
No. We're listen,
kind of coming full circle.
Like we talked about prior to this, what's meant to come out will come out, right? So you just keep going.
Okay. So in my mid 30s was when the alcohol really hit its peak. And I was, like I said, just in situations where it was really scary. And I got into an accident. There was actually two accidents. One was a minor fender bender, and because of it, I had a DUI. Got arrested, went to jail.
Yeah.
Then I had to serve 30 days, not in a jail. I was living in Arizona at the time, so it was called Tent City. So it was an outdoor thing.
Okay.
So me, the Catholic schoolgirl who never got in trouble, never answered back, always followed the rules, respected authority, just did something, and now I'm in jail and all these things. I'm like, oh my God. So I felt as if a black cloud is following me. And anytime anyone would just glance my way, I'm like, God, they know. Oh my God, they know. I felt like it was the scarlet letter.
Yeah.
Like it was just kind of, look at me, look at me, look at me. So that was like a big turning point in my life. And I remember at that time, and this was the first time in a long time when I said, okay, God, what's going on? Because the way I'm going is not good.
Yeah.
Why am I even on this earth?
Yeah.
I remember saying those exact words. Not that I got an answer.
Well, you probably did. You just don't realize it was an answer.
I was just kind of like, okay, you kind of go about your way. But just little things started to happen after that. And it's just interesting. I remember I didn't think I had a problem. I think it was shortly after that I was in the office and I thought I whispered it to myself when I was kind of like at my desk. And I'm like, I think I have a problem. And a friend of mine spun around in his seat so fast. And he's like, oh, Ivy, that is so great. The first step is acknowledging that you have a problem. And I'm like, whoa, like, calm down.
Yeah, you're like, I just acknowledge this to me, not to the rest of the
universe.
universe.
But it was like interesting. So little things happened. And then there's the DUI, and I had to do all these. It was an expensive lesson, Like I had to go to AA meetings, which of course anyone, not that I didn't believe in it. I just didn't think I belonged there.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't belong here.
Ivy,
all right, I have to
Ivy,
come.
were you judging the other people who were there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I am not like them.
Yeah.
I am not like them. But in AA, you share your stories. I didn't share. I was just there because I just wanted them to sign.
Because you're not like them.
Just sign the paper so that, I could fulfill my responsibilities and be done. So I said, but I would hear stories. I'm like, oh, I did that. oh, that's happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember once, I think I had to go like so many times, get the paper signed. But soon thereafter, I was feeling the pull to go and be there because it was at that time I stopped drinking. I was so afraid. Like I would look at alcohol and be like, oh my God, no. I was so like deathly afraid of it. But after 11 months, I was like, oh, I think I can handle it now. Like I'm
Okay.
good. I'm good.
Okay.
And it started the process again.
Yeah.
So, but around that time was when I had the awareness of, uh, if I didn't have this in my life, I think I'd be better off. And I think I need to be surrounded by people who are not drinkers. And that still took well over a decade,
Mm.
well over a decade, but it was there.
Did you spend any time during that time? So obviously you mentioned, right, you were confused younger because you had this structure around the church and around God, right? And then you had your family unit, which didn't include that structure at all. And so as you find yourself in this moment where you now have realized that your life is better without alcohol, do you remember at that time, did you connect those dots to your faith at all during that time? Or were you still pretty much kind of just not there? You were just sort of living and sort of going through it.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think there may have been times where there was a seed planted here and there, but
Yeah.
my awareness wasn't there yet.
Right. Right.
But around that time, I remember thinking to myself, okay, I need to understand why I do what I do. Like
Mm.
why, as a human being, why
Mm.
do I self-sabotage?
Mm.
Why am I putting myself in situations that is not healthy for me, let alone anybody else? The
Yeah.
driving, and all these things. And then I started getting into personal development, but it was more along the lines of quantum physics.
Okay.
And I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, this is it. And I remember one of the gentlemen, he said something. I think it was in one of because I was like following him, and I had a girlfriend of mine, like she totally didn't understand what the heck I was doing. And I was like, you just wouldn't understand. Like I was like in a place where I needed to, who am I?
Yeah.
Like, who am I? And I
Yeah.
remember him saying, I don't know if he was the one that coined this or someone else, but he said something along the lines, if you were to ask um, a physicist what created the universe, he or she would say energy.
Mm.
Energy
Mm-hmm.
was, always will
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you were to ask a theologian what created the universe, well, God always was, always will be, never can be created or destroyed. And I went, it was like bricks dropped on. I was like, that makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did it clear? But it just made a lot of sense to me because I grew up in the church, going to. I shouldn't say I grew up in the church. I grew up in the educational system of going to parochial school,
Yeah.
and then the home life. And I just didn't understand. I'm like, why? Why is it that I'm being taught this, but I'm shown this? Why is it that the right and wrong, but things are happening to me? Why is this and why? I was like, I just didn't understand. So I was angry about that. I really, really was angry about it. But I'm Ivy. I'm always happy
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. I just was very confused and I was like seeking. I was so seeking something, an answer. But church, God still didn't come into my existence, honestly, till about 3 years ago.
I love it.
Just 3 years ago. Now, mind you, all of this was happening in my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
am 55. All of
Mm-hmm.
this is in my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward, now I'm in this online space and just growing, going in this group and that group and
Yeah.
all the things.
Yeah.
Um, and can I drop names here?
Yeah. If you want to, go for it.
So you and I both know this gentleman. His name is Jose Escobar.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 years ago, we connected, and it was through another gentleman, Emilio Roman. It was Emilio and Daniela Roman. So through him, I met Jose, and I never heard of him or saw him online
Mm-hmm.
before that. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing him everywhere. We have a talk, and he was telling me about his morning and evening routine.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the morning and evening routine program. Great program. But there was one thing in it, because he's very, very strong in his faith.
Mm-hmm.
Very strong in his faith. One thing in there was what's called the examination of conscience.
Mm.
So part of the evening routine is to ask yourself, write out 3 questions. One is, did you consider God? The other is, did you offer your work to God? I honestly can't even think of the third right now. So let's just go with those 2 questions.
Yep.
So initially when I first started, I'd write the question out and I'm like, no, to both. No. So this went on for about 2 weeks when it was like, no, no. Then one day I'm like, huh. I just woke up one day. It was just more like, huh, am I considering God? Because a lot of times I'm like, I don't know what to offer God. I don't know. I'm still in the process of building and working. And
right. You're still working on that relationship.
But it was still the seed was planted.
Mm-hmm.
So that was 3 years ago. So I'm going through the program. That was great. And just little things, just people started to cross my path. Things were said. And I'm noticing things in a way that I'm like, okay. And then it was the tail end of that year when there was a woman that said to me, you have a particular favor over you.
Okay. You're like, I don't know what that means.
No, to me, favor, and I wasn't thinking like in the sense of
a spiritual sense, right?
Yeah. So, where's like separate religion?
Yeah.
I was just thinking favor. When you have favor over you, is you're just doing the right thing. You just do the right thing, and treat others the way you want to be treated. I just always believe that.
Yeah.
So I thought that's what she meant. But that came up quite a few times in the span of a few months. That January of 2024, I don't know what the heck was happening, because in every turn, every meeting, every group, God was mentioned. God was it never before.
Yeah.
Or I didn't notice it. And I would have to take myself off camera. I'm sobbing like for months. I'm like, what is going on? And I remember one day I was listening to every January, which is happening this January. I don't know if anyone knows Pedro Adao. He has a 31-day wisdom challenge. It's free. And they go through the book of Proverbs.
Okay.
Now, I never read the Bible really, other than when I was in school when I was little.
What was his name again?
Pedro Adao, Adao.
Adao. Okay, great.
Yeah. So for everyone listening,
I'll check it out.
Every January. And I had done it a couple of years ago. I had heard it cross my path and I did it, but I think I went through it maybe about 2 weeks and I kind of fell off. So then the following year comes up in January and I was doing it, but I fell off again. Was it 2 years or 3 years? Anyway, last year I went through it and I don't know, it just shifted me. But one person, a couple of people, one guy talked about the difference between religion and kingdom, which I was mind blown. And then Lisa Nichols was talking about favor and the way she explained it, because she has just a beautiful way of storytelling and all these things. And I just started to feel like I was being pulled. And it was Jose actually who said to me, Ivy, you're being called back. Because I was losing it at every turn. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And it's just, and he was like, you're being called back to the church. And I'm like, okay. So that was last year. I haven't gone to church. I think I did it one time and it's uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
Because, I grew up in it and it's beautiful. The churches are, you got to have the feeling, and I'm not into there's a routine to it and it's not my thing, although there's a part of me that wants to go because I feel like I should, but it's just not yet. I remember telling a girlfriend, she was so excited. She was like, oh, my church is this and come over here and Sunday we have this and that. I'm like, thank you. I appreciate it. I do. I'm just not beginning of my journey.
Pray on it.
So
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
She's talking to me. So I'm like, okay.
She stopped talking to you. Then you
Yeah.
didn't, then you were right in not going to that church.
I
If
guess
she's going to
not.
judge you for
Yeah.
not wanting to go to her church, then you were right
I'm
in
just
not
like,
going.
just, there's a difference between, doing that and just saying, you know what, I understand. And whenever you're ready, if you ever want to talk, I'm here. That's a
Yeah.
different way of approaching it,
Well, yes, she didn't have to show you her true colors straight off the bat.
And you know what? It's all good. But it's just interesting. My journey is really like, I feel like I'm a toddler right now. I'm just still, I'm coming back. I'm learning about the Bible. Just this year, I signed up for Rosary in a Year.
Yes.
So I'm learning about the Rosary simultaneous. It's the Bible in a year. So I'm doing that every day because I want to have not just a connection and a relationship with God. I want to understand. I just want to understand because I know I'm here for something bigger. I've felt it ever since I was a kid. I always knew that there was more for me. I always knew that there was something bigger for me because the people I was surrounded with, and it was more my family. I'm like, why was I placed in this?
Why do I have these people? Why are these people in
my
life?
What the heck? Yeah. But you learn as you grow, and not everyone grows, but when you are purposefully wanting to learn and grow and have wisdom, you realize that things happen for a reason. And if you can look at the things, even the stuff that I went through when I was a kid, and there's levels to forgiveness, I've let it go, so it doesn't hold on to me and it doesn't affect how I relate to people. I've forgiven. Although once I forgave, sometime later it came up again and I felt like triggered and stirred. And I was like, oh, okay, I think there's another level of forgiveness here, kind of thing, to kind of work through that. And so it's just part of the growth process for us. And I think by being called back, I'm just in a place where I'm just open. I'm just open to receiving.
Yeah, I
like,
love
just
it.
show me the way. And so I think now, and just to go back just a tad, when I was in high school, and it was a sophomore year in high school, I remember one day it was after school. I don't know what came over me or what happened beforehand. Maybe it was just a culmination of things. But I remember laying in my bed and I was sobbing. Like sobbing. The sun is shining in my room. It was a beautiful day. And I had scissors in my hands. Now, I knew I didn't want to cut myself or anything.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I just had it in my hands. And I remember just kind of hitting myself. And I was crying. And I said, God, and this was sophomore year, I said, God, all I want is education and love. Please just show me education and love. And I feel like I'm getting that now, just by all the people that are being placed in my path. I'm given the education just by all of this, like Rosary in a Year. And the people and Jose, I can't even begin to tell you. He doesn't even know how much of an effect he has on me just by him being himself with his faith.
Yeah.
And just recently, like, all his kids were in the hospital for RSV. And just me observing the power of prayer and watching on social media, just people sharing and praying. And I've had people just in conversation go, how are your friends and their kids? And I'm like, I didn't even know you were on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been praying for them. Like,
well, your post is how I saw it first. So I saw the news first through you posting out on Facebook his update, and I didn't know until I saw it. And it's the miracle that is God. When you were younger, Ivy, you were in favor to do something with your life, like you said, something big. And the enemy is real. And it's very possible that all of the people that were surrounding you in your life were controlled by the enemy because you were meant for more. You were meant for something special. And you chose God. Yeah, you chose, I mean, you did. You chose God. You lived through terrible suffering, and yet you picked God. You might have fallen away a little bit, you might have medicated yourself instead of going to him, right? You might have done a little self-medication, and he probably said, "Okay, Ivy, enough is enough. All right. We're going to put you in this fender bender. We're going to shock you by throwing you in this tent camp in Arizona and we're going to send you to AA with people we know you want nothing to do with." Just to humble you so that now when you go and share your story, you bring people back to him. And I'm with you. Like I'm doing Bible in a year right now myself. I started a prayer routine about 2 years ago and then incorporated Bible reading into it and all of that very first thing in the morning. And I love that you're doing that. In fact, now that I know that you're doing it, I'm going to text you every day and be like, "Okay, Ivy, what did we learn today?" Because I'm the same. Like I started reading the Bible about 8 months ago and now am educating myself in the same ways. So now I know I have someone I can be like, "Okay, Ivy, it's 5:30 in the morning. I know you're awake. Let's talk about the Bible." But God was preparing you, and he puts those who are greatest and most loved to him through the struggles, because the enemy is trying to keep him not as strong.
Yeah. I remember a boss of mine. Actually, I was in real estate for a while in my 30s. And my broker, when that happened, he said to me, he goes, "You know why this is happening to you, Ivy?" And I was like, "No, why?" And he says, "Because there's going to be women in your life that are going to go through this. And because you went through it, you're going to be able to help them." And I got so mad. I'm like, "Well, why do I have to be the one that always falls on my face? Why do I have to be the one, why do I have to make the mistakes? Why? But I get it.
Because you are so well spoken. You have so much poise. You have so much grace and kindness inside of you that you will be a person who will welcome everyone. And I'm sure now that you look back on that time going to those AA meetings, you're like, "Man, why wasn't I kinder? Why didn't I act more in my own nature?" But now you're learning that. Now you've healed. Now you're learning that. Now you understand that the amount of love that you have and light that you have is so big. It's so big. Yeah, it's true. It's true. From the minute I met you online to the time we met in person to now, I mean, your light is just huge. So you were created for something great. You are 100% right in that statement. And I love that you're going through learning. So talk to us a little bit, because we're coming close to getting close to time too. And I have 3 questions I ask everybody before we get to the end. So what are you doing today, just out of curiosity, for your routine? You mentioned rosary in a year. You mentioned a Bible in a year. What does your day look like, Ivy? What do you do to incorporate God into your day?
Typically, well, now, because it really is now like 2025 now, it's rosary in a year, the Bible in a year, and, Pedro Adeo's wisdom challenge. It's like all of that. And it's just being immersed in it on a daily basis. And because I really don't know the Bible. So it really is just that. Right now, I'm a student. So I do that in the mornings, along with, just a regular reading. I journal, I pray, and, I stretch, I drink my water. I think about what I'm going to talk about in my coffee talk time.
Yes.
And then I do my coffee talk, and yeah.
Okay. Well, everybody who is listening to this right now can take a few notes on how to incorporate God into their day from you, because it's important. And I think the questions that you mentioned that Jose had in his end of the day are amazing questions. Also, those are actually things that I journal first thing in the morning. So that sets me on the right path. Like one of the things I journal every morning, I write to God. And one of the things I write in there is, please allow me to serve you and be a vessel for your work today. And so I start my day that way. And then I try to stay on track. Yes. And then I try to stay on track right during the course of the day. That way it's kind of like I'm lubricating the spokes, if you will. Like I'm like, okay, if I say this morning, I will have that mindset throughout the day. So I start my day that way. But yeah.
It's important. It definitely sets the tone for sure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And
I definitely feel calmer,
peace,
and more at ease. And I just quickly, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, whenever this all started, my husband said to me, it had to be 2 years ago, he was like, what's going on? He's like, all of a sudden you're talking about God. I go, I can't help it. I'm not doing it on purpose. I can't help it. It's just coming. I was just like, I can't help it. Everything I do and everyone I see and everything I hear, like it's just pulling at me. And I was just, and he's like, whoa. He's like, okay. He goes, okay. I support you. It's just kind of like a little odd right now that all of a sudden you're talking about God. And he believes, but he's a little different because I think he grew up, he calls it Protestant. Protestant.
That's
and so sometimes we have like dialogues that he's so freaking smart, like, oh my God, like so smart, like he brings up things like I can mention something and he's like, well, did you know that in this book of this? And I'm like, how'd you know that? Like his memory to write things down and read it over and over, and then I still don't remember it.
Well,
every day's a new day. Every day's a new day.
Did he get educated young?
We have very similar childhoods.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but his grandmother was very much, kind of was,
she practiced.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, and he just has a memory he just retains.
That's amazing.
It's fantastic because I can't remember diddly squat.
Well, listen, that's a function of all of the amazing things you already have in your brain. So the new stuff just doesn't fit very quickly. That's all.
That's it. I had a friend tell me one day, he goes, Ivy, every day's a new day for you, isn't it? And I'm like, you know what? Yes, it is.
Well, you should have looked at him and said,
I don't keep the junk that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, well, you can look at him and say, well, that's why I'm so happy every day, because every day is just the start of a happy new day. I forget all of the garbage that happened yesterday.
That is so true. And that is, let it go. Let it go. Let it go. It's one of the things I preach all the time. Just
yes.
You sleep better at night.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. All right. Well, are you ready for your closing questions?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So we're going to get started. This one you've kind of already talked about a few things that would be good resources for folks, but have you read or absorbed anything other than what we've already talked about? So, and not the Bible, anything that really allows you to know God? Is there anything, a podcast, a book, something resource-wise that you know of that allows you to know God that you haven't mentioned yet? Because you've given us some great things so far.
I will say, and this came up a couple of years ago, where out of nowhere, I think I was in the middle of working and the thought came, or the download, 41-day fast.
Okay.
41.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've done fasting for like a day or two, but 40, when I looked up and I went, are you kidding me?
Well,
like 40. So I remember putting it out on Facebook.
Yeah.
Has anyone done a fast? Was it 41 day? I think it was 41-day prayer fast, something along those lines. And I put it out. And at the time, I wasn't one to put out questions. And I had people come back, and I had a woman that privately messaged me. She told me about the 21-day prayer fast. Never heard of it. Never knew. I'd known about prayer and about fasting, but I didn't know that there was prayer fast
For 21 days?
for 21 days. Look.
Oh, dang. Okay.
So I thought I was going to do it this year, and I was like, I have too much on my plate. I can't to
You're
like
gonna literally
really give it.
fast for 21 days?
So it's not where you don't eat anything. So there's different
Okay.
types of fasts.
Okay.
The one I had followed last year was just more like intermittent fasting. So maybe
Okay.
like 8 to 8,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, or 8 in the morning until 8 p.m. kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't only water. You could have coffee, but it has to be black, which is the way I drink it.
Yeah.
And then, but it was called the Daniel fast. Never heard of it. And
Okay.
then I started speaking about it. People are like, oh yeah, I've done that. Oh yeah, I know about the I'm like, never heard of this. So
Yeah.
again, it's things coming to me. So that's one thing
Okay.
that kind of is good for people if they want to. One, it's cleansing for the body, and it allows you, because you're supposed to pray
To spiritually
and
connect. Yeah.
yes, and spiritually connect to God, because you can cleanse for just health reasons, and you could
Yeah.
twofold
Yeah.
health and a
Yeah.
connection, a deeper connection with God. So
Okay. I love it. All right. We will have that in the notes too. That's a great advice. We didn't talk a lot about Holy Spirit today. Prior to each show, I have my guests pray over the show, and we talk a little bit to each other about it. And you did mention Holy Spirit in your prayer, but we did not talk about Holy Spirit today in the show. So this question, I feel is important because people, as they're starting out on their journey, myself included, you have these little moments that God has given you wisdom, or it's coming from another person, but it was a message from God. Like the guy you described in your office when you whispered to yourself, I have a problem. He was on it, right? It, almost like a messenger sent from God to blurt that out at that moment, to kind of be like a period for you.
yeah.
And I don't know if your body had any kind of physical response to him saying that. You sort of mentioned a little bit about it. So the question is, when you're in connection with spirit, what does that feel like to you in your body? And have you experienced that yet? Or understood what that feels like to you yet?
I think I did experience it last January with this whole favor thing.
Mm.
I don't know if it was in my prayer, if it was a dream. I think it was a dream. And I woke up and I was just a mess, just about
Mm.
bird. It was something along the lines of favor and the fear of God.
Mm.
And I felt like I understood. I'm still learning, but the favor part, I just felt, and I was a mess. So I felt like spirit was washing over me,
Mm.
although it wasn't like I consciously thought that spirit was
Right,
washing.
right. You look back
Um,
at it now and you're like, okay,
yeah,
that was the sensation I had.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was a very much a tingling sensation, very much just, it's almost like, and I've had a handful of these where you feel so broken, like just shattered. And there's two ways of looking at brokenness. There's the
Mm-hmm.
brokenness of pain, and then there's almost of being broken from the old and being, like put
Rebuilt. Mm-hmm.
together.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, that's kind of, I felt like that was the shattering of the old. I'm speaking this now, is the shattering of the old and then the slowly rebuilding. And
Mm.
I'm still in the building process. I always tell people, I'm like a flower. I'm just starting to blossom.
I can
At
identify with that.
55, I'm just starting to blossom.
That's okay, because once you 50 years from now, when you get to that point in your life, you will be able to, you will get there and God will be like, Ivy, girl, you got it right when you were supposed to. Don't worry about how old you were.
First half, lots of learning, lots of lessons,
Yeah. Yeah.
errors, and judgment. And now it's like, okay,
Yeah. Now
all
you've
good.
got all that good.
Education.
Yes, you have all that good life experience now that you're supposed to share with the universe so that they don't repeat it. Right?
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
sharing part is not easy either.
I know.
The sharing, letting people know and being vulnerable and
Mm-hmm.
I do little drips. I'm like,
Yeah.
because there's a lot.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, not everyone is in this part of their journey where they've healed enough that they recognize not to judge someone else's journey. Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So our third and final question. All right. If you were helping yourself as a child, okay, knowing all of the things that you know today, what is the one thing that you would tell yourself in that moment when you were that high school girl holding those scissors in your hand? What would you tell yourself to help her through?
I would say that God has you in his hands, and that what you are going through right now is for a purpose. Do not fear. Do not fret. I am with you always. I'm guiding you. I am supporting you. I am lifting you. I'm loving you. Just keep on keeping on.
I love that. I love that. And I want you to hang on to that always. So when you're going through any kind of struggles, that's what goes through your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good. I felt that.
Yeah, I did too. I got goosebumps all over. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Well, Ivy, thank you so much for sharing today. Can you let everyone know how to best follow you or get a hold of you if they want to ask questions or have any communication?
The best place right now is really Facebook.
Okay.
That's really the best place. I can do email, but I'm so bad at checking my email. Facebook Messenger or Facebook, best place. I'm quick to answer.
All right, fantastic. Well, Ivy, I am so grateful that you came on and joined us today. So thank you for that. If you've listened to Ivy's episode today, hopefully you've taken some of the amazing nuggets that she's used to grow her relationship with God. And thank you all for joining Evolve Through God today, and we will see you next episode.